we have this AI technology that has been blowing up, and it's changed the way people work. And where before you kind of had an idea how everyone did their work, nowadays you really can't be sure. Somebody might be messaging you, but it's an agent. Someone's running 100 parallel agents to do work. People are using agents for all sorts of things, and some people are still doing everything manually. So the idea behind this podcast is to explore how AI is reshaping Web3, specifically security, but also other parts of it and how people are working, and maybe just to give some uh, give the audience a look over the leading security folks' shoulder to see how they're doing their work. So I'm Armen. I'm a technical account manager at Certora, and Plamen. We have Plamen here with us, who's an expert security researcher. Plamen, you want to give any intro about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm Plamen. I'm a security researcher at Certora for almost a year now, and I've been playing around a lot with AI actually. And I have released my own open source agent for anybody to use for Web3 security, full end-to-end autonomous agent. And some of you may have used it, some of you may have not, but I advise you to try it out at least because it's free. You just have to have a subscription to any of the big models like Quality or Codex, and yeah, that's about it for an intro.
Yeah, definitely use the tool, and we'll talk more in depth about how you built it and why you built it the way you built it. But maybe just before we get into that, let's talk about the security space for a second, right? Because uh, a lot of software, software world has gotten hit by the hurricane that is AI, and security especially is a topic on people's minds because the AI just seems to be really good at hacking things. Um, so you as an expert hacker as well, how have you seen, has your life changed in the last 6 to 12 months? Um, what's your experience been like?
Yeah, to be honest, I expected more of a change. It's been kind of disappointing, I guess, because everyone sees these big hacks nowadays and they all get like so scared. DeFi is over or like AI is agile level now, but it's not, to be honest. It's just mass semantic monitoring in real time. You just can't escape it. Most of the hacks you see, it's like some abandoned contract with like 100K TVL that no one uses. There's like some bug back from 2020. You would never, as a security researcher, start going through that, even as a hacker, manually wasting time, hoping there's a bug and you can just drain like a 5-figure reward. But with AI now, it's easy. It detects it. It may or may not exploit it, but you can exploit it if you just see the root cause that AI detected. So yeah, there wasn't that big of a change, I guess. A lot of agents emerged, but they're all behind a paywall, so you never see like anything big. If anybody had like the perfect end-to-end solution, everyone would be using like their service. No one would be paying for manual audits and all of that stuff, and monitoring and defenses and topsec and all of that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's exactly right. A lot of the smaller protocols that previously wouldn't have been worth, security researchers or hackers' time to get into. Now, if just you have autonomous agents that will just go and try to hack these things. So, uh, yeah, and we saw that in April. I mean, like there was 30 hacks. There's the two big ones, but there's also a bunch of small ones that you usually wouldn't have seen because the cost of doing the hack was much higher, and now the cost has gone down dramatically.
It's like only a few cents of tokens. Yeah, there was another hacker today. Actually, they hacked like a bridge. I didn't read that much. I don't remember which protocol it was, but again, it was like some malformed payload, and they just extracted like 10 million in value.
Oh yeah, Thorchain.
No, no torchain. And it was another hack today, I think, or
Wow,
the day before.
interesting. Yeah, we're seeing these like every other day now, if not every day. Um, Interesting. So what do you use AI for? Obviously, you're using it a lot, but you're saying it's not a perfect solution. Where does it help you?
To be honest, in every phase, it helps. It doesn't solve it entirely. The biggest pain point I had, and probably all my peers have, is like starting new code bases. It's like the worst, especially if you're like on a big project and you just have to begin from somewhere. And everybody used to write these articles about their methodology, how they go like top to bottom or bottom to the top, or the smallest contract and they go inside out or outside in. Now, right now you can just turn on AI skill or just a plain vanilla agent, and you get like a full protocol explanation, the entry points, the interactions, the state mutations, everything, just depending on how you prompt it. And yeah, I used to prompt a lot, like in cursor or anti-gravity, even though anti-gravity is kind of not working correctly right now. I don't know. I liked it a lot in the beginning, it's deteriorated. But yeah, just ask as many questions as you can. To be
Yeah,
honest, all of these fields have just become a matter of expertise more than a matter of practice, especially like for development work, I guess. Because if you know the right questions to ask, you can pretty much cover 90% of everything.
I see. So you still need to understand. Yeah, I saw this thing. It said, uh, you know, it can do thinking for you, but it can't understand for you. So you still have to understand the system and understand where the exploits might come from, and then it
Definitely.
with understanding
It
that.
understands only as much as it has been trained on to understand, basically. For example, if I have a breach, the agent very well notices and knows that when you breach out, the same amount should be breached in on the receiving end. And it knows that the invariant should be that those two balances should always match each other on both chains and stuff like that. But there could be unexpected occurrences, rounding errors, because it can't properly test math that well. People think that agents can do math, but they don't really do that a lot. Some even try to cheat, like they underneath the hood, they will just write a Python script to do the calculation because they're not very good with big numbers or with big rounding or decimals. But yeah, but nowadays I don't even run that much vanilla agents, like just a few skills already pre-written. Marchev has written a couple of skills for reconnaissance, for like searching in Solid for past issues based on semantic meaning and keywords, I guess, and that helps a lot. Yeah, you just run it once, wait for a couple of minutes, you get like a protocol overview, invariants that the agent can find, control flow, everything, and you just go from there, and you just save like a day or two of exploring the code, like aimlessly exploring the code.
Yeah. So okay, so let's say you have a 4 week audit. You before you would spend like 3 days understanding the system or something like that,
Absolutely.
and now you're spending 1 day. What are you doing for the rest of like, all that time? Are you using AI throughout? Or you're just asking questions?
Oh
Do
yeah,
you?
I ask questions end to end, like I don't stop asking it questions, absolutely. Because when you have an understanding of the system, and if you have a good intuition on what can break, you can just save as much time as possible just asking questions. Where is this variable? Is this verified? If this happens, what happens down in the code? Like I don't have to semantically go by line on each function. If the agent can sufficiently verify the outcome that would happen with a certain parameter, for example, I can just ask it, what if I pass a negative number, and it can trace the control flow and just give me an answer. If I'm not entirely sure the agent does well, I can just go manual.
Yeah. And
But
before you were going manually everywhere. So would you say you're asking twice as many questions about a code base as before, 10 times as many?
I guess twice or three times more, absolutely, yeah. Because sometimes you have to ask it twice. You can't always be too sure it would give the same answer. They have a lot of bias. I'm not sure what you call it. It's not cognitive bias, but they like to just return early when they think they're right on some kind of hypothesis. So sometimes you have to push it to go a bit further, and it could find an issue. It could give you a good lead, a good signal, and yeah, you go from there.
Yeah, I've noticed for me a lot of times it's like just you have to be relentless with them, and you just keep
Absolutely.
asking things. You just it'll answer, and then you'll make sure that it's right. You'll ask the question a different way. You'll tell it to explain reasoning behind its answer, and
Yeah,
I
and
found a
then you
lot of
clear the context because it runs out of context and starts hallucinating a bunch. So you have to just like reset its brain hard and
yeah.
start anew.
So have you tried out other AI tools besides the one you've developed?
I've tried Pashov skills, but only like for benchmarking purposes. But it's more checklist based. It's not really semantically based. It's more for enumeration. I could say it like that. If you have like an access control issue on one function, manually you may find it, but you may miss it on some other part of the code. You shouldn't, but it could happen if it's like a large code base. With a skill like that, you're never going to miss an issue like that. It
I
does a
see.
lot of coverage, yeah.
Yeah, you get all the low hanging fruit. So you said, okay, you said you ask twice as many questions now, and I, assuming you get the right answers for those, does that uh, does that save you time? So does it mean like audits in half the time now, or how does it work?
Not really half the time, but you can cover twice as much and you can be twice as sure that what you're reading and verifying is absolutely right. Another thing, I didn't used to do a lot of testing because of time constraints, because I'm not that on that long audits. For example, if it's a 3 week long audit, I'm rarely like writing tests or doing anything. With AI, it's much easier to just tell it to write a test. If you have like some signal or lead or hypothesis, that's the best way to verify end to end if there is an issue or not. For
Interesting.
example, if I think some kind of value or a range of values could break a function, instead of telling the agent to trace the function with those numbers and it can make a mistake, obviously, I just tell it to write a test that invokes the contracts and it could just instantly spawn a 500 lines of code test. All the imports are correct, all the functions and interfaces are correct, and you don't deal with that foundry overhead and boilerplate.
Yeah, interesting. So basically, instead of being 90% sure about the code, let's say after you're done with the audit, now you can be like 99%.
99, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And so what do you think about the people that, they'll say they'll do, now that they have AI, they'll do the audit in half the time? Are they just, maybe they're just going until they're 90% sure? Is there any risk in that?
There's absolutely risk. You could have asked the wrong questions. You could have reported something wrong. You could have missed an issue, which is bad, of course. Because if you're doing twice as much in half the time, you're basically doing the same kind of work. And there's really no merit in doing these short audits unless the client is really on the edge. Because if you have twice as much time to do twice as good of a job and give them more like a whole testing suite, like Foundry or fuzzing or invariant testing, that's just a bonus and there's no reason not to do that.
Yeah. So
You give
especially
more security, you give more verification, and people trust you more. And the clients are more happy, and everyone is happy. You did a better job overall.
yeah. And I think before, if you could have gotten away with 90% coverage because, the cost of finding bugs was much higher. Now that it's much lower, if you do, half the time and you do like, I don't know, 80% or 90% coverage and you don't go that extra mile, that last 10% is much more likely to be exploited today than before, just because the cost has gone down so much.
Absolutely, yeah. You need to have like a sense of responsibility, like the code is yours. Because if it was your protocol that you're writing and verifying, you wouldn't spend half the time to protect it. You would spend as much time as you're possibly given or you have. And you use all the tools that you have. So all AIs, all frameworks for testing and everything, yeah.
Yeah. So if somebody,
Because you can run an AI audit, yeah, sorry. You can run an AI audit, but you can't force the AI auditor to take responsibility if something happens. That just doesn't work like that. There
right.
has to be like a face behind it.
Yeah, you have to have someone that you trust. So if somebody
Absolutely.
did come and say they have the perfect AI solution that, they think catches all the bugs, um, how would you, like, what questions would you ask them to figure out if they're actually, if they're right about their,
You don't really need to ask questions, you need to see results. I mean, out of the space right now, you don't really see that. You don't see like a whole influx of client and promotions or online or saying, oh, this tool is the best, 100% coverage. You don't see that. The best tools, if I have to like name them, I think Cypher and Solace, or at least from what I'm reading on Twitter, is doing a good job. And it has like some cool integrations. And Riptide's Grego does very well on bug bounties. I'm not sure how it would do like on audits, but I think they offer audits. I just haven't seen any post-mortems or any client feedbacks online from them. but they make big money on bug bounties, so that should prove that they have a working system, at least for finding more critical issues, even if they're like single occurrences. They have like a whole team dedicated only to finding and turning the agent on certain targets. So they would for sure have like some kind of monitoring or scanning skill or system in place that could detect a weakness. They run their AI and see if they find something critical.
Yeah,
Just like an attacker would probably, because you need only one vulnerability to just steal all of the money or like a big chunk. You don't really need to find all of the bugs. That's like the pressure point. Because you would want an AI to do 100% coverage, even though one bug can drain your entire protocol, and that's all an attacker needs.
I see. So right now the the use case is more for bug bounties and just finding one bug instead of finding all the bugs.
Depending on what your goal is. If your goal is continuous security, which I think everyone is striving on, you can definitely achieve a high enough coverage to be comfortable and just continue manually with bug bounty programs. Because the AI auditor could find the bug bounty and get paid like 100K, but there could be a second bug that it missed. So there's no point really. You still get the rate.
Yeah. So so what do you think is going to happen in the next, I don't know, year or so? Do you think the tools are going to be good enough where, this, auditors are replaced or
Yeah, I
yeah,
wouldn't say it like that. It sounds very like pessimistic. I don't think they would get replaced. I mean, there's a shift in the human resources, I would say, what you bring to the table. And from the past few months, I think that's expertise. Because you would be the one training the agent or writing the skill or asking the questions that, as we discussed so far. You need to understand DeFi, understand the economics or the expectations of the code. In a year, could it? Probably. We saw Mythos. Everyone was like shook from what it was doing in Web 2. But the internet didn't break. They didn't fix security on Web 2 or Web 3, so we don't know what would happen, to be honest. You see these big headlines and you like expect something to happen, and then just like 1 or 2 months pass and nothing happens. The competitors catch up, the models get dumber when they dedicate their compute to like their next flagship model, and nothing happens basically. You just get nerfed, your usage runs out in 2 prompts, and everyone gets angry.
yeah.
That's
So
on the public side.
let's talk about what you've built. So at Plamen, you've built quite an interesting tool. How much time have you spent building out this AI agent, and how often are you using it? Are you using it for every audit? Because it does a lot of the because you said it for the audits you're asking a lot of questions, but with the Plummet is more of an autonomous tool, right? It launches like
Yeah,
100 agents
absolutely.
and it's does the whole audit. It takes like, I don't know, an hour to a couple hours, 10
Well, a
hours.
couple of hours right now, yeah. My last run I did on V2 because I'm doing some more wall optimizations local. I think it was like 5 or 6 hours on a code base.
Uh, and so how did you start building it? Like, did you have some methodology in mind, or like, yeah, how did it start and how has it developed through your trials and errors?
I was doing like an engagement. I had to write a lot of tests, and I just thought if you could extract the invariants correctly with the agent and have it test against them, you could just have a harness that could automatically run and verify most of the code. And I just wanted to build something like that for myself. There wasn't like any interface, any wizards or options. I just wrote in the chat audit this code and just started iterating. But when you think about it, most of the questions you ask on every audit or every type of audit, let's say you have a breach. So for a breach, you have like a certain set of questions you used to ask yourself during manual review. Now you ask the agent as well. You can just delegate all of that. And just you would have covered at least 60 or 70% of cases because every protocol is different, of course, and comes with its own novelties. But for the generic stuff, you can always delegate all the questions you have, and you'll probably get mostly accurate answers for them.
You're giving it a list of questions and then you're running plumbing on the code base that you're auditing, or
Yeah, for example, I have generic skills. Let's say, for example, for math, for transactions on the AVM or the SVM, then depending on what the protocol type is, which is again detected by some agents in the beginning of the tool, You just know that it's a vote, for example, it's an ERC 4626 vote. So I have a file with example methodology questions that are directly meant for votes, for the shares, for the rounding, and for redemptions and all that stuff. And it just dynamically determines how many agents to spawn, what methodologies to attach to each agent, breadth, so to go over the entire code base, which are like more critical areas semantically, and just deep dive them more deeply because they start losing context. So of course, when one agent hits like 100 or 200K, you just respawn a new one. There's no need to keep on going.
So this is the pipeline as of recently, but you said you made some changes, right? So you're
Yeah,
you're
this is the first version. Yeah.
and so when you're using this, you started an audit today, let's say, right? You understand the code in one day, and then do you run Plamen, or do you
I ran it like a couple of days in. I want to be absolutely sure what I know is correct, not just like some result from a skill I ran about the invariance, the control flow, what the protocol is meant to do. Speaking probably a bit with the dev team to have like some assumptions and thread overall built in my head. But then I run the pipeline just so I can be sure that what it outputs I can verify more quickly. Because if I run for the Plamen tool first and get the reports and start reading it, I can't verify anything inside the report because I'm not familiar enough with the code base.
I see. So first you build your own understanding, and then you can review its findings. And how after all this long run, 100 agents doing all sorts of things, like it makes sense. First you analyze areas that you want to explore, then you explore them in breadth, and then you go in depth, and then you have like you're chaining a bunch of attacks together, right? And then you have the skeptics that come in to make sure your findings are accurate. After all of this, um, you know, how often are you finding that it finds interesting findings that you didn't think of, or um, you know,
All the time, I think, all the time. It's like some very, I don't know how to call them, they're exotic. It's like a case I would never think about. It's not like a real vulnerability. For example, if the admin decided to go through some very ridiculous route and just drain some vault or something, but it's not a real vulnerability, of course, because you're the admin, you're the trusted authority, but it's so ridiculous, you will never think about the steps it takes that the code enables it to do. It would be a false positive, but just reading it is interesting to see how the agent was thinking and what code paths it took. And if you read it and you verify it yourself and just try to change things up, maybe the actors or the things they do, you could get pretty good leads on the code itself.
interesting. So a lot of the findings might be false positives, but the little patterns within the findings give you leads for other ideas. So
Absolutely.
you're using your system level understanding, and kind of it's like little mistakes to come up with real issues.
Yeah, definitely. You just gather hypotheses throughout the entire run, and they just try to whichever ones didn't make it like as a full-on finding that's verified with a POC or with like some concrete code trace. You just try to mash them together and to get a chain reaction. For example, you could have like some discrepancy in one function that leaves the state of the contract in some way that enables another function to break when it runs in sequence.
Interesting.
For example, we have like function X. We run function X and the state of the contract changes. If with that changed state we run the function Y, we could exploit something in the code. If two separate agents saw these functions independently, they wouldn't chain the vulnerability on itself. That's why I have this chain analysis phase that tries to match. So it matches a post condition with a precondition for a vulnerability.
I see. And then you also do some of that work after you reviewed the findings. And it sounds like, so how many times is there like um you know like a fully accurate 100% right issue that you're like very surprised by, that you're like, wow, it nailed this finding?
Yeah, quite a lot, actually. It would always get like two or three issues that you just read the title and it clicks in your head almost instantly that you don't need to do a lot of verification,
Mm.
that you know it's right, basically knowing the protocol. You just have to read the title, read the line of code it mentions, and you know the vulnerability is there.
Yeah. And what are the biggest limitations? Like what is like the biggest problem with, you have
Yeah,
this.
the LMs itself, they just don't listen. You tell them to do one thing, they're very biased towards executing their task first before actually executing it correctly and thoroughly as you've told them. If you just told it to audit a function for bugs, it would like find the missing access control, for example, and just stop and give you that. It won't go deeper, it won't give you an impact, it won't try to raise the severity or see if that access control that's missing is actually really missing or is not verified somewhere down the line. It's very hard to navigate them. For example, you have, for example, a deposit function and a withdraw function. It may find some kind of discrepancy in the withdraw function, and it just tells you and stops. But it doesn't look at the deposit function, even though combining those two gives you the real vulnerability. So it's very hard to tell the agent to just don't stop and go all the way.
I see. So, and it's not able to make system-wide connections like you would.
Yeah. It's very hard. Once it's called, I think, anchoring bias. It finds some hypothesis or some signal or lead, and it just anchors onto that, and it just starts to get blindsided, especially if its context is starting to fill up. That's why I spawn so many agents in parallel, recursively or iteratively or in parallel, just to maximize the knowledge. That's also why my subscription is blowing up right now, but yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. So you've built this whole orchestration system so that they don't make these mistakes based on your experience, managing their lines. And yeah, it's interesting that the limitations sound very similar to this thing from ArcAGI. I don't know if you saw it.
The newest one.
Yeah, maybe we can look at the article for a second, actually. So to me, it seems like, just some context on this. This is, some eval for LLMs, and these are little games that the LLM has to play. And both GPT 5.5 and 4.7 have scored below, 1%, below 0.5% even. And they identified 3 common failure modes. And the reason this is interesting to me is it seems like it's analogous to the ways that LLMs fail at auditing as well. Because, so the first one is it's a local effect and not able to understand the whole world. So in these games, it's able to understand the rules. So the rules aren't written. It's able to understand the rules a little bit, but it's not able to figure out the whole game, which is very similar to, an LLM figuring out how a function works or a contract works, but not understanding the full protocol, right? Because these games are games that have never been seen before, but they're very easy to solve for humans. So I encourage you to look into this on your own time if you haven't heard of it. But the LLM is not able to figure out the full world, and it seems like also and here I'll bring this up. In smart contracts, this is also the effect where you are not able, the LLM is not able to figure out the whole system. Do you agree with this? Have you looked into this at all? Does it seem like the failure modes are similar?
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't looked at the entire article. I only heard about the benchmark and that they failed it, but I think it's a good thing. These older ArcAGI, they're very misleading. You see like a 95% and you think you're doomed, but you're actually not. That's exactly the same. I think it's the same bias effect, I guess. They would find like I'm not sure what the games are, to be honest. Maybe if I knew what the games were, I would be able to comment better. But it probably finds like one rule on its own and just anchors to that, and it thinks the game revolves around it, but it could have like multiple rules.
Yeah, we could look at one of the games actually. Let's see if there's anything interesting. So for example, this one, it's supposed to paint this square purple to match this top left square. And then, it figures out that the action rotates, the container, but it's not able to figure out the game. You need to like paint a piece of this square, right? So you're supposed to rotate this square.
So it's just given the top left image, but it's not told that they should match.
Yeah, it's given this like this game on the this whole thing. It's given like the actions, but it's not able to figure out that you need to rotate the square 45 degrees, dip it into the paint, and then press like space so that you could win. And here's the game. You can see like see, okay, it figures out that it paints, and then you can see it
Yeah,
stop.
I think I don't see. I think you click the link, but I don't see anything.
Oh, you don't see it. Let me present my other screen. Yeah, I think the reason this is interesting to me is these games are very simple, and the LLMs are absolutely not able to figure it out. Uh, and you can see like it's trying all these things. It's trying to dip the square in the paint, but it doesn't get the game.
Yeah,
Uh,
it doesn't really know that it's already failed once. More than half is already proper, I guess.
yeah, and he just tries the next action. He's not thinking about the system. So again, this is like understanding the function, but not understanding how the function fits into the whole contract or the whole protocol. And yeah, the other failure modes are like it's able to understand, it's able to understand one game, but it's not able to solve all the levels, which is like finding one bug, but not being able to solve all the bugs, find all the bugs.
Yeah,
And
that's exactly why I have methodology in place. Because with these games, it's like an infinite number of games that you can come up, and you probably would never have an LLM that's able to solve them all, at least in this phase. But we don't know; it could come out tomorrow. They're doing all kinds of innovations. But I guess for protocols, you have a mostly finite set of bugs. So technically, you should be able to train them to catch 90% of them. Only the most novel bug patterns, that's what you can catch.
but there's always new protocols being built. That's the
Yeah,
interesting, right?
absolutely, yeah.
And they're all unique. The reason you would spend money to build a protocol is that it's new. If it's the same, you wouldn't build it. And since it's new, it's not in the training data. And that's the other failure mode. The LLM will think that this game is like another game that it knows, like it thinks it's Tetris, and it makes mistakes because of that. And I imagine something similar happens with smart contracts where it thinks it's another protocol that it knows. It's like, oh, this is like Uniswap, but actually it's not like Uniswap. This is something else. It's new. It's never been seen before. Um,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
really trying to associate what it sees with something else it knows, instead of like people do it as well. We all think with associations more than from first principles. I guess that's the failure mode itself. It
yeah,
doesn't like break down everything it sees to the smallest possible part and then go up from there, from what could fail at each phase of the entire system.
yeah. So it's cool that you've built like some structure around this to help help the LLMs, work around their limitations to be able to find bugs in code. How else are you using AI? So you're using it for your audits. Are you using it for anything else? Are you um, researching things with it? Do you have an open class set up where you're like doing?
Oh no, that stuff I'm too scared to set up something like that to run autonomously. But yeah, I mean the tool itself was built with cloud code, so I guess I'm also doing dev work because it's mostly like written vibe coded. The
Yeah.
entire thing is like vibe coded from the ground up.
And how many lines of code is it now? Do you know?
No
It's
idea. I have no idea. It's a big the
yeah,
newest script I wrote for V2, it's like I guess 10K lines, but there's like 5 or 6 files or even more because I have some validation files as well. So it's well over 20 or 30K lines. That's for like Python code, and when you account for the methodology files, which are Markdown files, it's a lot,
yeah,
really.
yeah. I see you have 250 commits and 200 something stars. Um, Very cool. So how do you think? Okay, last question, and we can wrap up. Um, yeah, how do you think the tools are going to develop? I know I asked a bit about it already, but it seems like they're able to do a lot of these pattern matching things. They're able to be autonomous and find these low hanging fruits. Is the role of the auditor going to be just like checking that the findings are accurate, or do we still need you to, do you still you think the auditors must understand the full system for quite some time, and the LLM will never truly understand the system?
There will be always be novel systems, so I guess you always need somebody who is capable of understanding the new system if needed. But apart from that, as maybe you would transition to be a triager of issues, which in and itself some are already doing, like full time, if they use AI only exclusively to find bugs. But as the future, everyone I think is trying to just do continuous security and monitoring. I guess that's the best way to protect because attacks happen faster than defense. I see all these CI/CD pipelines, PR reviews that run automatically in GitHub Actions, and all of that stuff, and it's nice. And I guess that's the way everyone should be going. It's not bad to get like whole full system audits, but every new piece of code that you introduce should be verified.
Yeah, yeah, and now we're seeing, right, all levels of the stack are being attacked, both
Yeah.
people, off-chain code. Obviously, private key management is extremely, vulnerable.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's kind of funny. The person has become the bottleneck of the system. And you
yeah,
can't really verify that the admin wouldn't just leak his private key somewhere, so you need to have a lot of trust in the system you're using
yeah.
as a
You
user.
normally verify people. They are too
Yeah.
complex. Once we
I
have
mean,
that,
at this point, it would be better to like have the agent manage the multi-sig or the private key or something, and just be sure it wouldn't get injected with something.
yeah,
Because you see those people like they deploy some contract, and the comment above the contract itself is like some kind of prompt injection. For
yeah,
if an agent reads it, that's very cool to see. People are like getting creative with it, just jailbreaking all the way.
yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. Maybe once the agents can manage keys, then we'll solve the human problem by just
Yeah,
giving
or
the
the wallet
responsibility.
problem as well. Just
Yeah.
the entire user experience and management, it's a bottleneck.
So
But I mean, you can't blame them though. You had like this case where one guy went to the protocol. He was an employee for like 6 months or a year, and then he hacked the protocol somehow.
yeah.
So you can't really be fully protected.
So, well, actually, I lied. Actual last question. Do you have, how do you see, yeah, the security space evolving? And what do you think, what would you tell yourself or people that are starting out in the security space on what they should focus on and what are going to be the highest value skills in the coming years?
Adaptability for sure, but everyone says adaptability, so it's kind of boring. But you just have to have a good understanding of reading the systems, breaking them down, understanding what they do. So basically, what we've been studying all this time, even before AI. AI is a leverage right now for studying. You need to understand DeFi, you need to understand traditional finance and their structures because most of DeFi is built on top of them. The general math you need, coding skills to read the code, of course. For other languages like Rust, to just understand how it works, it depends really on what direction you're going.
Interesting.
Zero knowledge proofs, all of that stuff. You need to be able to ask the right questions if you want the best coverage you can achieve from an audit. And how do you know what questions to ask? You need to understand the domain you're auditing.
Interesting. So even though everything is changing, nothing is changing. You still need to understand all the same things as before. And those are the skills that will be valuable.
Yeah, right now, yeah, we'll see in a year, but if for the person who will build the next big thing, he will be a person that understands all of this stuff right now.
Okay. So yeah, keep working hard if you're an early security researcher.
Yeah, definitely, yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for your time, Plamen, and thank you all for listening. We hope to explore how people are using AI and how the world is changing. And yeah, this will be the first of hopefully many episodes.